Here we go. Now our session is being recorded, I think. Yeah, now we're being recorded. So first up, kind of an interesting note. When they look at the research of online students versus face-to-face students, the finding is that students online do marginally better. So at least on par, maybe slightly better. It's not a huge gap. And I feel like a lot of people might attribute this to technology, but in fact, the technology is often something that gets in the way. That modestly better for online learning comes entirely from the teacher and their practices and their strategies and what the research calls their ability to enhance online learning instead of adjust online learning. So it's not just taking face-to-face activities and sort of forcing them into an online world, but using the online world to enhance student learning. And so hopefully a couple of the strategies that we talk about today and in future sessions will help you do that. So our very first thing, which seems pretty straightforward, but just always a good reminder, your visual classroom is like a physical classroom, and the more organized it is, the more students can function independently and confidently, the easier it is for you. And so the first thing that I suggest is to get rid of a lot of visual clutter. There's this whole thing right now about Bitmoji classrooms, and they're super cute. And I myself have been known to use a Bitmoji here or there, but I feel like sometimes as teachers, especially as an elementary teacher, we can go a little overboard with it. And just like we don't want to overstimulate students in a classroom, we don't want them overstimulated in an online world. So visuals, absolutely. Graphics, for sure. Things that are going to help students and support their understanding, absolutely. Hard to read fonts are going to be tricky. Busy highlighting and font coloring. Use it strategically, but don't overuse it because then it just becomes really difficult to read. And then those unnecessary decorations and images, just use them thoughtfully. By all means, use your Bitmojis, just use them thoughtfully. And then when it comes to directions, there's what we call the dreaded wall of text, which is just words upon words upon words. And I also just said, don't use too many images, but don't use too many words. So it's a bit of a balance. And that sounds like I'm giving maybe backwards directions, but it really is just finding a balance between enough text that students and parents will understand without them getting lost or feeling overwhelmed, and images to support what you're talking about and to guide them without being a distraction. And so if you are using text, research suggests that you consider using numbered lists and short paragraphs and use your headings and subheadings, lots of those sort of text cues to help both parents and students navigate through text. And then whenever possible, consider using short videos instead. So if we're working in a Moodle platform, there's a built-in function that you can make your videos right in Moodle. If you're on a Google Suite platform, QuickTime is my preference. You can do video recordings of like your face, screen recordings of what's just on your screen, audio recordings, all through QuickTime. And all of our computers have it, one of Rocky View's standard technologies. So I know lots of teachers go out and look for Screencastify and other things that work for them, and that's totally fine. But QuickTime is so easy, and the format goes right into Google. So there's no putting into iMovie adjusting. It's super fast, and it's already on your computer ready for you to use. Our next strategy is about chunking lessons. So interestingly, the research, mostly on high school students, but I'd say is applicable for all students, is that online materials require higher mental effort to complete, and students are getting less support to do it. So we're asking them to take on more roles than they would in the classroom, where we would do the load of delivering the instruction. Now they have to go out and find that information for themselves a lot of the time. Even watching a video, they need to find out the information by themselves. They're organizing their time, they're trying to stay on task, and there's just more work involved for them with online learning. And so bearing that in mind, when we're thinking of our lessons, something that would be done in face-to-face needs to be shorter online, a little more concise, a little more focused. So the research suggests something that would be a 30-minute lesson in a classroom, which is a mini lesson, some discussion, some practice, becomes about a 6-minute video when we move it online. And in your video, you can have pauses. You can ask comprehension questions. You're not going to get an answer, obviously, but you can continue to use those good practices that you used in your classroom, incorporating them into your videos, and just being mindful that your videos are not getting too long. The Again, high school students, so much research is done on high school students, unfortunately, because never before have we had so many elementary students working in an online environment. And so researchers are working to get caught up, but it's a slow go. But so for high school students, they found that after about 9 minutes, their focus and what they're retaining from videos drops off dramatically. So 6 to 9, they're on a slow decline. And after 9 minutes, it's like a cliff, and pretty much everything beyond that is lost. And so I suggest in your videos, you get about 1 minute per grade, where before you need to change something up. So it's not that if you're teaching grade 1, you can only make 1 minute videos. It's that if you're teaching grade 1, you get about a minute of talking where they're totally focused. And then something needs to change to bring their focus back in. So it could just be as simple as showing a visual while you're talking. So you get like 30, 45 seconds of talking, you bring up a visual, you get about another minute, you change the visual, you get about another minute. And so if you've got grade 2, maybe you've got 2 minutes of attention before things start to wander. And interestingly, the research on adults is quite similar as well. Our attention span is also like pathetic, like a minute and a half before our brain starts to wander and we need to be brought back in. And so some things that you can do to help students with that higher mental effort that they're doing with online activities. And the big one is giving students processing time. And so in your synchronous sessions, it might be a pause just to let students think through things, think that teacher wait time in the classroom 7 seconds, maybe we'll up that to 10 or 15 seconds, which are like the longest 15 seconds ever, but students do need the processing time. And then processing activities. So if you're in a synchronous session, things like think, pair, share in a breakout room, if that works for your students. And if you have younger students that you need to keep in a room together, the thumbs up, or like one I totally understand, or don't, like one I'm lost, 5 I understand, those kinds of things where they're giving you visual feedback. And then the student teacher, where you have a student who then becomes the teacher and explains it back to the rest of the class. Those kinds of things that just give them time to, for the think talkers who need to think it through, and the students who just need a little bit more thinking time. For asynchronous activities, practice time to absorb the info and to find gaps in their understanding. So this could be having them make videos for you. This could be having them re-explain it to their parents, things where they're having to access that information and reuse it to find, right? There's nothing like having to teach something to know that you don't understand it. And then this one I thought was really interesting. They recommend alternating low and high intensity activities. So if you're doing a higher mental focus activity, think like writing, tricky math things, then alternate that with a lower intensity. So something that has more coloring in it, less mental requirements, and then put in another higher mental activity. Of course, encourage brain breaks. And then this I just learned last Friday, and I think it's so interesting. If you want to know how long it's going to take your students to accomplish an activity at home, do it yourself and times that number by 3. And so that gives you on average about how long it's going to take a student to do it. So if it took you 5 minutes, it's going to take them 15, potentially 20. If it took you 20 minutes, they're going to need an hour. And then obviously you're going to need to account for the stronger, weaker, faster, slower learners in there. Asking for feedback. In a classroom, we get constant feedback. We're watching our students. We know if they're engaged or not. We know whether they're talking to the person sitting beside them. Are they listening? Are they participating? But we don't get that as much online, especially during the asynchronous things. And so they recommend asking for feedback in really intentional ways from students and parents. And I feel like in the classroom, the feedback that we're often looking for is like formative and summative. But online, they recommend a whole nother category, which is not just about the content, but how they're accessing the content. So is the classroom easy to navigate? Are they having technical issues? Sometimes we have to ask, Sometimes we don't have to ask, and parents are very clear, but sometimes we have to ask to make sure we're getting that feedback. When you're asking for feedback, keep it really simple and keep it structured, knowing that you're going to have to wade through that data and you don't want to waste a lot of time, like 2-3 questions, multiple choice if you're concerned and you have like some trickier families. And then know what you're looking for when you're asking for feedback, not just like, how's it going, but like really specific, what are you looking for from this particular feedback? The more specific and smaller and focused it is, the more often you can do it without being overwhelmed by the information that you're getting back. Ooh, I've got 3 more minutes. Okay. Visual scaffolding is up next. So basically, this is visual cues on top of visuals. So if you are sharing pictures, maps, any information that that you can add additional cues, so like arrows, circles, labels, text cues, it's going to increase student comprehension. In the research that they did, they had students look at maps with annotated visual cues and students look at maps without them. The recall of the maps with the visual cues was 35% better than without. So visuals are awesome, but if there's something in particular you want students to get out of your visual, guide them. Show them, draw on it, put in text, however you can help focus them on the important information and to block out the less important information, which is a digital and media literacy skill that they're still building and not something they're probably great at. So help them with that. This is my strategy. I love this. It's called leverage your keeners. There's always those families and those students who really want to just do it all and do more. And so use them. Do you need a video about a science experiment? Have them go off and do it. Let families choose from a list of science experiments. They make the videos, they share them back. You have the content videos, the students are learning, you're highlighting your students and celebrating them and also taking things off your workload. So things like finding examples, send students to do that. Content videos, have them make it. Experiments that need to be done, get them to do it. Think alouds, all those kinds of things you can pass back to your and use them in your classroom like your own content. And then you get to recognize your overachievers. It inspires others to want to do that. Those students who maybe aren't engaging as much. And then my only like caveat on that is just make sure that students all have really equal opportunity to do that. So it's not just always the same students, but everyone's being offered the opportunity. Just some families are doing it more than others. And then my very last one is actually from Tracy. Tracy, I've stolen your idea. I hope it's okay. Tracy has come up with this awesome, so if you're missing your pocket chart that you would use in your classroom, she's found a way to use Jamboard instead. And so it's her who uses Jamboard. It doesn't always have to be students in there mucking things up, but you can layer things, you can move things around, groups, words, sentence building, all kinds of things that you can do with Jamboard. And so very quick, references, all the stuff that came forth. There's Tracy right there because I stole her idea. And 15 minutes exactly. If you have any questions, I know that was so fast. There's going to be a recording on our staff room site, the slides as well. And if ever you want to talk about more about these things, I'm super happy to do that. But if you have any questions, I will stop talking. And if not, thank you so much for your time. I know that was really fast.
Thank you, Alicia. It was awesome. Are you able to go back to that resource page? I'm just going to take a screenshot. Is it okay?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
Thank you for that. This is awesome. And I like how it was really short. And I'm sorry you felt rushed, but this was awesome. It was good.
It was my fault for over planning. I'm a teacher. I overplanned. Shouldn't have done less.
It was a great tidbit.
Oh, Josephine, we have to pay for. I haven't paid for Cami at all.
Thank you, Alicia. I got to go to another meeting.
Thanks so much for coming.
Pamela, how come you're not paying for Cami? It's like it's just giving me like 70 days or 80 days trial for free.
Oh.
Alicia, do we just stay here if we're doing the RTR or it's the other Alicia?
Yeah,
no.
I'm doing the RTR too with you, Alicia. I'm like, see you later. Can you send this to me? And then I'm like, hi, I'm back.
Oh, that's right. I use the same room. So if you're here for RTR, just hang tight because and it's time to start RTR. I backed 2 sessions together. I don't know why I did that. But at least it's all the same room, so we're all here together. So I hope I didn't confuse too many people who came in and were like, "This is not an RTR talk."
It's okay.
Okay, so I will look into Cami. I've never heard of it before, but I have a list started on my desk here of all the resources that I need to check out. So I will investigate.
So Cami allows you to take the PDF and make it into a workable document, and it's absolutely fantastic. I have never paid for it, but now that I'm thinking about it, either I had a code or I'm switching my emails up in order to get the free ones. But I'm wondering if RVS with the new, money
Mhm.
could may have an in or a discount for that
Sure, yeah,
for,
I can.
for online learning.
I'm always looking for interesting new things that will be helpful. Okay, so